Do you love breakdowns? Do you need stats? Do you crave insight? Download the AllStar app. UFC, Bellator, PFL 1 Championship, and more. Ad-free, fully customizable. Download the best app in the business. Link in descriptions. UFC 282, right? They announced that Yuri Prohaska is going to defend the title against Glover, right? But they didn't announce it as the main event.
Oh,
So
wait.
Ariel Helwani, huh?
No.
So Ariel Helwani comes
I'm
out.
fighting on that card too.
Exactly, right?
I'm on that card.
Yeah, you're
I
on
don't know
that
if you
card,
know that.
right?
Yeah, I'm on that
Oh,
card.
I
Yeah.
do know that. I knew that, of
Yeah,
course,
I'm on
man.
that
We
card.
talked about it last time.
Yeah.
And Ariel Helwani,
That's right.
he released some information about the UFC working on Jon Jones as the main
Yes.
event of that card versus Francis. But
Yes.
Francis is still recovering from the knee surgery. So the options that they have
Yes.
is Stipe versus Jon Jones at 282, which is not close to being signed because Stipe doesn't even look like
Yeah.
he's, I don't know, who knows what Stipe's doing right now, right? He's firefighting and shit,
Yeah.
saving cats from trees
Yeah,
and shit
and he
like that,
posted
right?
something. Yeah. He
Yeah.
posted something on Twitter or something. Like he was on like vacation. So I mean it's like what, 8 weeks?
Yes.
I don't think
You're in
Stipe is
camp, so
taking
you know
a Jon
exactly how
Jones fight.
long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
like 8 weeks. I don't think Stipe is the type of fighter to just be like, I'll fight Jon Jones on 8 weeks' notice. I mean, he could have already been in camp and they're just working out the particulars as far as like who's going to be the main event, how much are we doing here, like are we doing a pay-per-view percentage, like what percentage are we doing type thing. So I mean that could be the holdup, and they both could be in camp. I would figure that Jon would be in camp, and Jon's like, if Jon, here we go speculating again, if Jon really wanted to fight by the end of the year, you would have to think that Jon would be like, okay, I won on the last pay per view card of the year. So he's going to start camp and do whether he's comfortable with 12 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever he's comfortable with doing. I don't know how Jon normally runs his camps, especially now that he's at heavyweight. So,
well, this is the last pay-per-view
I,
card of the year.
Yeah,
This is going to be the last one of the year, right? So,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
Jon is probably already in camp. I think that's what it is. I
I
think
would,
Jon's
I
in
would
camp.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that I would hope that he was already in camp. That he's, obviously people consider him to be the greatest of all time. I mean, but he is a wild man. He can just be like, I'm not starting camp until I get a fight signed, and it could be like 6 weeks out. And he's like, all right, I'll start camp now, and he'll probably fucking do it because he's Jon Jones.
Yeah. If I'm in Stipe's shoes, I think I hold a lot of cards that some aces
You
right in
hold
the back
everything.
pocket. Yeah.
And I think, in my opinion, the Stipe holds a lot of weight in this whole conversation. Because I think that Jon Jones wants the Stipe fight more than he wants the Francis fight.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was thinking about this today because I think that the Francis fight, not that Stipe isn't dangerous, I think the Francis fight is way more dangerous. Like to Jon's health and to Jon's legacy and to the optics of how how this whole move to heavyweight plays out. I think that it's a better move for him to try and fight Stipe than it is Francis.
Well, the two options is right. UFC 282, Jones versus Stipe. If they can get that done, that's the first option. Second option, if they can't get that done, if they can't get that deal signed, then they're gonna wait for Francis for early 2023 against Jon Jones.
Yeah.
But Francis is also in negotiations with the UFC. We don't know what's
about
happening with that.
resigning.
Yeah. We don't even know when he's gonna be. They don't know when he's gonna be ready, right? I see Francis coming back when he's ready, not when the UFC's pushing him. You know what I mean? Like he already know what happens when the UFC pushes him. He's just like, fuck you guys, right? So
Francis,
Steve holds a lot of power right now, man. And like you said, I think Jones does want to fight Stipe because this is his first fight at heavyweight, and they could put the belt on the line with this fight as well. Right? You don't need Francis to put the belt on the line. You just need one of the former champions, which is Stipe.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest fights. Jones, he's gonna sit back. Someone in the comments is saying like he's trying to age out Stipe. Possibly true. I don't know, but I think Stipe is dangerous no matter what. You know, what I mean, he's not that old. It's not like he's 45 years old, 50 years old, right? There's a huge difference. So what if you're in Stipe's shoes? You're probably training already, right? Because that's what fighters do. They train, right? They train. They work at this, at the firehouse. whatever, raises kids and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what would the UFC need to do for you to come back at UFC 282 if you're in Stipe's shoes?
I mean, if I'm being honest,
Mm.
Stipe is probably not the dumbest guy as far as the income that he's received from the UFC.
Yeah.
So I don't technically think he probably needs the money.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point it is strictly about a legacy thing. I think that Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time. Jon Jones is arguably the greatest light heavyweight of all time. I think that this is a legacy fight for both of them. And to be honest with you, I don't think Stipe needs this fight to cement his legacy in anything. I mean, Stipe literally could just be like, "All right, I'm out." Like he doesn't. I don't think Stipe doesn't need this fight. Jon Jones needs this fight. Jon Jones needs a heavyweight fight, and he needs a Stipe fight, and he needs a Francis fight. Stipe doesn't need this fight. Francis, in my opinion, doesn't need this fight. I don't think either of them do. Like to cement their legacy, or to go on the record books for anything. I don't think that either of them do. I think this is a Jon Jones type thing. Like Jon needs this. Jon needs this. The however many years it's been since he's been claiming to move to heavyweight. He needs this out of all three of them. So he'll probably be pulling for everyone. He'll be saying whatever he needs to say in the media about to get a fight for either of them. I think that he'll try and pick a fight with Stipe before he tries to pick a fight with Francis. And like you said, Francis is the type of guy to tell the UFC to go fuck themselves. I'm not coming back until I'm ready. And that's even if he resigns with the UFC. Because he still has to resign with the UFC. He's done out of his contract.
You make a good point about that. Jon Jones needs these fights more than Stipe or Francis needs Jon Jones. Like that.
He does.
Completely
and that's
true.
That's true, and that's what people aren't really. That's the elephant in the room that really no one's discussing. Like Stipe could be like, I'm out. I don't need this fight. I'm already the greatest heavyweight of all time. Like I've proven myself against the heavyweights, against the best heavyweights of my time. I'm the greatest heavyweight of all time. Francis is making that case for himself now. He's fighting everyone. He beat everyone. He's beating everyone. Like, so there's going to be that point. I think that if we're being honest, the fight, maybe a trilogy fight with Francis and Stipe for both of their legacies, as opposed to a Jon Jones fight.
That's what I want. I want to see the trilogy because we got to have one guy above the other, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And like I was saying, this is a Jon Jones fight. This isn't a Stipe or Francis fight.
Because it's a win-win for Jon Jones, Stipe or Francis. It's a win-win because if he loses, it's his first fight in heavyweight.
Heavyweight.
He's fighting heavyweights.
He hasn't fought since how long?
There's a lot of built-in. I don't want to say excuses, but things that he could fall back on. Not himself personally, but other people that break down the sport. Analysis. Analysis. Is that analysis? No. Analyst. I'm a fucking retard. Analyst.
It's all right, man.
You're the analyst, right? So there's a lot of stuff that we could say, like, oh yeah, Jon, he's long layoff, his first time and had a heavyweight, he didn't, he had a lot of stuff. It's a win-win for Jon Jones completely. Because if he goes and fights, let's say, Curtis Blades.
Yeah.
I like Curtis Blades, and he's one of the best heavyweights in the world and probably one of the best heavyweights of all time. Yeah. But he doesn't have that name recognition. He doesn't have that GOAT status that Stipe has and that Francis is working towards, right? He doesn't have those things, and I'm not attacking Curtis Blades. Giving you an example. It's like him fighting Derek Lewis. Same thing in a way, right? Yeah. It's like those guys are big names, but it's not the same. Like it's not sexy.
It's not. And I think, and Jon, in my opinion, is a smart guy in what he does with his career. Yeah. And I think that Curtis Blades is a bad matchup for him. I think Curtis beats him. I think Stipe beats him. I think Francis beats him. I think they all beat him. I think that, the only one, in my opinion, that he's got a chance of beating, and it's strictly based off of the size, is Stipe. Because Stipe weighed in as I think his last fight was like 230 something, and John's walking around at 250, whatever. And John's super long. John's reach is like 84 inches, I think, 83 inches, something. I think Stipe's is 80, and John is really good at using his length. I think out of all those guys, out of the top 4 guys in the division, even Gon, I think Stipe. I think that's probably the most winnable fight for John. If we're looking at this, objectively.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the I don't want to say the easiest fight, but I think that's probably the path, the less strenuous path to victory is through Stipe. But like I said earlier, Stipe doesn't need it. Stipe, you literally can tell Jon Jones to go fuck himself, and he doesn't need it. Just be like, I'm just going to be a firefighter in Cleveland and just hang out with my kids all day. Like that's literally all he can do.
Yeah, it's like Stipe is Stipe, man. His legacy is set in stone. He doesn't have to fight anybody. He doesn't have to go through anything. And that's why he could ask for whatever the fuck he wants. If the UFC really needs him to step in at UFC 282. And I can't wait to see like how it plays out. You know what I mean? Because I think Jon Jones is ready to fight. I think he's ready to fight.
I think John's
he's antsy.
I think he's finally ready. I think I'm going to be honest with you. I think he's ready to fight, but I also think he has to fight now. I think he has to fight now.
It's just dragging on, right?
Like I'm saying, like, yeah, like I think people are really just tired of the whole move to heavyweight and I'm gonna do it on my own thing, and people are just gonna forget about what he does and what he says. That's why he'll randomly put a tweet out and then he'll delete it later, and then that's like creates like his name in the media with the Jon Jones and do this, and then this whole thing with are they bringing him back? Like he still has to keep his name out there, but he needs. I'm like we've been saying for the past 15 minutes. John needs this. Nobody else in this scenario needs this. Like nobody else in the whole scenario needs this. So we'll see what happens.
I want to see Jon Jones back. I mean, whenever a guy that his caliber is gonna come back, I'm excited to see what can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I want to see if he's more dangerous at heavyweight. I want to see what if this is all if this is all like a real thing, or if it's like he's just been blowing smoke, and we'll see how this goes. But I don't know, man. I'm just tired of this whole speculation. The shit or get off the pot. Like let's go, man. Like, are you fighting or not? Like, let's get this going, man. Like, I get it. There's particulars and everything behind the scenes that need to be ironed out. But when it comes down to it, it's either you're fighting or you're not. And everyone wants to get paid. He's got that, your management group or your manager. That's why you pay them. That's why they take a certain percentage, is to know exactly what you want. You say, hey, I want this much money, if it's the pay-per-view, I want this much pay-per-view, whatever, and make it happen. And if you can't make those numbers happen, get me as close as you can and then call me back and then figure it out from there.